911.
Yes, I need a police officer out here.
What's your address?
This guy's, my daughter's living with a guy, and he just beat the holy shit out of her. And look at her, Greg. You didn't beat the shit out of her. I came out here to get her. She's got 2 black eyes. I mean, it looks like a freaking tractor hit her in the face. We understand that it is his house, and he's untouchable in it, according to him.
Well, not if you beat someone up. Does she need medical attention?
I don't know, tell you the truth. Both of her eyes are very black.
Ask her if she
and
wants
her face.
medical.
Do you think you need medical attention? She says no.
Okay. Do you know if he has any weapons?
He's got lots of guns in his house.
The maniac just was mad, and why had I left? And you've been out of town, you just got back in town, this wasn't right, and there came the first hit. And I have a mouth, and I argued back, and there came the next hit. And then the attacks and the slams and the grabbing me by my head, and I got scared and tried to run, and it went into the bedroom, and I was slammed up against the wall on top of the nightstand, and at that point I tried to climb across the bed to get away from him, and he grabbed hold of me and slammed me down to the floor where I landed on all fours, and he straddled the back of me and grabbed up my necklace and choked me with it till it broke. And that was the point that I believe he grabbed my arm and jerked it behind my back and put my face into the carpet. There were a few more hits, and all the while it was get off of me and stop, and what's wrong with you? And then he stopped. And the first time I immediately called his parents, and they came and got him. And we split up for 7 months. But we talked, and this is what can go on, this is what can't go on, that can never happen again, so on and so forth. And it was supposed to not, and things were supposed to change. The second time I don't have a reason, if I'm being completely honest, other than all the work and the talk of all of the 7 months and effort. It just seemed so immediate to be all for naught. I wanted to believe that it was isolated also, and there was a lot of apology and a lot of caretaking and a lot of remorse, and it made it feel isolated, and it was, me very sternly, this can never happen again. And it didn't for a long time. It didn't until after I got pregnant. It was probably the summer, which, I got pregnant 2 months after that, but it was probably in the summer, the first time that he grabbed me up by the throat and threw me down. And at that point, you're pregnant, and it's different. Now there's not just 2 boys, there's going to be 3, and this is his baby, and we can fight through it and fix it. And surely if I don't turn my back, we can work it out and figure out how to get it back to the way it used to be. And they had him for 5 years. They got him cards every Father's Day. Jet had a dad's day at school, and he didn't ask his dad, he asked Greg to be there. He was very much a part of them. And with him being him, he won't have anything to do with them anymore. Not that I would allow it either, but he's not one of those. So it's 5 years. It's 5 years wasted. It breaks a person. It broke my family up. It hurt my kids. It hurt me. It's a really, really big letdown. It's a huge disappointment that you want to have that faith in somebody, and you give it everything you have to know that ultimately they just don't care. They don't want the good that they have in their life. And it makes me feel extremely underappreciated, like I wasn't enough. Like my kids weren't enough. His son wasn't enough. It's not easy.
You fight and argue and you yell and maybe you throw something, but then it can progress from that to now I'm throwing something at you, to where now I'm, shoving you, to where now I'm actually punching you. So it's kind of progressive, it can be. So a lot of times these things are going to get worse, but if you choose to stay and you end up in a pervasive pattern of abuse, then I think that leaving gets harder and harder and harder, because there's so much guilt and shame. I think that's an aspect of the being perpetrated on, is you have guilt and shame. You're embarrassed. You didn't think this was ever going to happen to you. So there is definitely, and that's part of the abuse, is that the person that had this happen to them, the psychological aspect is the guilt and the shame, and thinking like how embarrassed they are that this happened when it's not their fault at all. I think that, totally has effect on children. It becomes abuse. It's abusive to the children to view it. It's psychologically and emotionally abusive to children to see their parents fighting and being violent. It is not okay. And going back to the learning aspect, there's a certain amount of saying to your kids, like, okay, so when you fight, this is okay, or this is how you react, this is what you do. And parents teach our kids how to be in the world. We learn from our parents. They teach us to become hopefully functional adults, and there's a certain amount of learning that comes from that.
I've never been somebody to be put on a string for a man, and somehow he got me on a string.